I'd like to welcome you all for this discussion on inclusion. I'm the Videography and Anti-Stigma Lead. What we're going to discuss is what is the implications of inclusion, what happens if we're not inclusive, and how can we become more inclusive within the trust. And inclusion for me is being more tolerant, I think, of people with different needs. So please can you introduce yourselves and briefly say, what is inclusion to you personally?
My name is Wendy Tangen. I'm a Clinical Service Inclusion Lead, and I'm also the chair of our Workforce Race Equality Network. Inclusion to me is a sense of belonging, being part of something, being accepted, and also being valued for my individuality, valued for what I can bring to the table, and to be recognised and acknowledged for me.
And I'm Kate Ward. I'm an occupational therapist working in the trust, and I'm also one of the chairs for the Rainbow Alliance LGBT network. And inclusion for me is about all humans, all people being respected and appreciated for who they are, taking into account individual characteristics, beliefs, and people's abilities, and making sure that everybody is included as part of a community.
My name is Munya. I am a community mental health nurse. Inclusion to me means embracing and involving everybody, irrespective of their background, their race, their gender, their profession.
So the first question is, why is inclusion important? So I'm going to open that up to the panel.
I guess for me, inclusion is important because if we're not inclusive, then that leads to things like labelling, prejudice and stereotyping of other people. And that leads to people being treated differently and discriminated against. And that people then become oppressed and live lives of disadvantage. And also it's law as well. It's against the law for people to be treated differently based on their personal characteristics.
How can we kind of ensure that we do include people?
In my view, I think we need an organization that recognizes diversity within its workforce, and also diversity within its stakeholders, and then ensuring that they are involved at each level of the organization.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's really important to be inclusive. Like Kate sort of said, it fosters relationship and it promotes that diversity in terms of a viewpoint, and it allows for fostering and breaking down of barriers because we have a better understanding of each other. But in terms of actually as a person, as an individual, and how do I become more inclusive, I think it's about recognizing my own biases and being self-aware of my own prejudices and acknowledging that, because we all have within us the opinions and views and having different views. But I think what's important is recognizing that your views may be different and seeking to actually learn and grow from what your limitations might be. And so I think inclusive and the importance of inclusive is about the varying and the seeking out of opinions and understanding from each other.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're not an inclusive organisation, or do you think that we're getting there? As you said, we need more diversity within like different levels within the organisation. And I completely agree with that. We do. As an organisation, and I'm not going to be negative because I think we are trying to get there, but it's trying to get people involved as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's not just about the workforce in terms of better inclusion, but we need to be more inclusive around our practice as well, because there's some really horrendous health inequalities across different communities of people. And I think as, you know, as workers, we need to be more, you know, educated around that and more aware, and treat people in more of an authentically person-centered way, because we need to acknowledge people's differences and, you know, and in order to meet that person's needs. If we don't know the person as a whole, then how can we be person-centered?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what I picked out of there is we need somebody who knows people to lead the inclusion in the trust. So you really need somebody who says, who works for this trust? Who are the cleaners? Who are the nurses? Who are the doctors? Who are the managers? Who are the administrators? So you really need an organization that has people who see people before anything else, and who understand people who work for their organization.
Recognize our own bias as well, because we all have bias, you know, and if we need to start recognizing and acknowledging that for ourselves, and recognizing how that, you know, influences our behaviors and attitudes towards other people.
Absolutely.
But being open and honest about that. I'm on, you know, when we talked about how we can become more inclusive, you know, in ourselves, you know, I've been working on recognising the advantage that I have as a white person, and educating myself around, you know, white privilege, and thinking about how I can use that constructively. It's not about being ashamed of that, you know, but it's about, right, okay, I recognise that there's a disadvantage and an advantage there. How can I use that to actively challenge and be, you know, it's not about just saying that, you know, racism is not okay, but it's about being more anti-racist and using kind of my position that my race gives me in order to do that for people who don't have the same advantage as I do. But being very honest, you know, because race equality is not just a BME issue, it's for all of us to challenge.
I think as an organisation, we are heading in the right direction in terms of inclusivity. I think the work that we're doing in terms of changing the culture is very much led by our the most senior person in our trust, which is our Chief Executive Officer. And I think what's really, for me, is important is the way in which the engagement takes place, and the efforts that's been paid in trying to get everybody's voice to be heard. And that is something that, you know, is not the easiest of things to do, and it's very challenging. And I can see how the trust is actually trying to sort of make a difference in this way. From a patient's point of view, I do agree that we need to be a lot more aware of our patients' needs and their preferences and their choices. And, you know, they are experts in their own right, so we should be able to hear what they say, and also, like Munya just mentioned, treat our service users, our patients, our carers, our visitors as part of our team, and not see them as somebody that's different, because we are working together for one goal here, and that's actually creating a better society for everyone.
And I mean, for me as well, the fact that we're having this conversation actually means that the trust is thinking about addressing any areas where there is no inclusion, and getting done at inclusion.
I mean, I completely agree. We do need to involve service users and carers more, especially with quite major decisions and new services, and start from the very beginning rather than halfway through. And it should be an equal consultation, right? So we're getting this panel together, but we need at least 2 service users and 2 carers to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the environment is also very important. It's not just, you know, it's how do we create an environment that encourage and welcome people with varied disability and abilities and preferences to feel comfortable working with us and in the environment that we have for them to make them feel comfortable. It's not too difficult to achieve, I feel.
I go to these meetings and they blind me with science, you know, so I don't feel included because they're just going on and I have no idea what they're talking about, but feel like I can't stop the meeting and say, can you explain that a bit more easier? So again, we need to be very mindful that not everybody talks in a certain language.
And we have to have information that's accessible for everybody. You know, we exclude a lot of people on that basis, don't we, of not using inclusive language.
One of the questions is, how do I recognise when I or my team is not inclusive?
It takes somebody with a lot of courage to actually call it out. And calling it out isn't a negative thing. Calling it out and saying, look, you know, I think we need to be better at this, or maybe we need to reflect more on certain situations that actually allows us to learn from it and improve is important. I think it's a really, it's very powerful when your team members and you know, let's say your junior team members have ideas and have questions that actually challenge the way in which the processes work or the system works within a team, and we are able to kind of learn and grow from that. So I think for me, to encourage teams to be more inclusive, it's a matter of allowing them to have their voice, listening to them, but also valuing everybody's opinions and views, and letting them have ownership of it, and not feel as though we constantly have to look over someone's shoulder or be very dictatorial. It's about that sort of collaborative approach to how we actually move forward.
Yeah. And it's okay to ask questions, is it? It's okay to be inquisitive about what we don't know, and, you know.
It starts at a team meeting, really, doesn't it? If there's a quiet person who's not speaking, then you try and involve them and ask their opinion, you know, because it might be that they're a quiet person. So you need to just take that step and say, so what do you feel? How do you think about it? You know? And then you're drawing them in, and you're making it more inclusive within the team meeting. Especially now that we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, it's very easy for a team member to just sit back and listen.
Yeah.
So I think as an overall team, you need to try and involve that person. So yeah,
it's about role modeling, isn't it? And it's about sort of recognizing when team members may sit back and not say, or maybe not be overtly sort of voicing your opinion. But it's also about creating, for me, it's about creating different ways of people sharing their views and not needing to actually feel as though they need to say it in front of an audience, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, when there's no include, there are signs we can look out for. Inequality, creature, things like that. So if you have an organizational culture of stock checks, reflection, learning from incidents, we can be able to identify, I think this is a symptom that inclusion wasn't done here. And then we learn things like that.
So one of the questions is, what should I do if I see examples of inequality at my workplace?
I think if you see something that's not right, you have to call it out. You have to do something about it. Sitting back and not doing anything about it because it's not your business, or it's not something that's my remit is not good enough.
No.
You can't just not be, somebody who will allow those behaviors and attitudes to carry on. You have to call it out. And there are ways in which you can do that, depending on the situation or depending on the circumstances. You can do that with a person one-to-one, or it's something that you can address within a team, or something that you can escalate that actually takes looking at services as a whole.
What if you don't feel comfortable to bring it up in the team? What if you think, I can't really say anything? Where else could you take it?
Within the trust that actually allows you to do that, you can go to your line manager, advisor, you can go to one of the network members if that's something you're comfortable talking to. You can take it, like I said, to the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian. Now that we have Freedom to Speak Up ambassadors, you can also sort of connect with those those guys, the well-being advisors, are other avenues that you can actually take things to focus. Well, so there's lots of different avenues that the trust has before you can take something to a formal complaint, or before you're actually going down that route. Lots of advice on HR. You can, there's lots of people that would be there to support you.
I want to speak about diversity, inclusion and equality, but I don't want to get it wrong or cause offence. Do you have any advice? Because I think that's some of the biggest fears, isn't it? I might say something completely wrong and I didn't mean it like that, and they might read into it wrong, because it can become quite a sensitive subject.
Acknowledge it to others that you have limitations in your either your vocabulary or understanding, and your limitations might affect other people. But what important is you put your point across for the benefit of everybody else. I'm sure people will understand.
Coming from that very position of, I want to, be better at this, I want to value diversity better, I want to be more inclusive, that's the most important thing, isn't it? You come in with an inquisitive mind, you want to learn, you want to, enhance your understanding. And when the Rainbow Alliance runs training sessions for LGBT health awareness and trans and non-binary awareness as well, it's made very clear from the outset that this is a safe space to ask questions. There's no wrong question to ask. There's no, come and test your understanding, and you've come to learn. And with that, anything that you kind of want to know or ask about will be respected, because ultimately you're wanting to kind of improve and be more inclusive and, achieve better diversity and equality in the organisation, which is the most important thing.
And I think you're right. And I think, like Tricia said at the very beginning, it's understanding things in the context that is said sometimes is really important. So it's about that tolerance and actually knowing that you're supporting someone to possibly learn from what they may have said. That may or may not, of course, offend depending on the context that is actually said and meant. And there are differences in saying something in the context of something and possibly getting terminology wrong than actually being overtly offensive. And that's very different. Those are two very different things. And I think it's important to actually acknowledge that and be tolerant about people who are trying to actually sort of understand. I may not always get it right, but that's okay, because it is all right not to get things right, and it's all right to have that conversation about how we can improve it.
And for myself, I think it's about speak to somebody how you want to be spoken to. If you won't want to hear it, then they won't want to hear it. Yeah. Because some things can be offensive. And so you just need to take a step back and think, well, how would I feel if somebody said that to me? Or how would I feel if I weren't included in that going out, get-togethers, a staff get-together? How would I feel if somebody didn't ask me? Because I've had this conversation before. Sometimes you don't want to go to office, to staff dues, but sometimes it's nice to be asked, for you to say no, and some people can make assumptions. We won't ask them because we know they won't come, and then you straight away excluded them, and they've not had a chance to say, no, it's okay, thanks for asking. So sometimes you just have to think, how would I feel? There's a fine line, isn't there, to being excluded and inclusive, but also being offensive or being racist or discriminate. It's about defining it, and it's also about that person who's saying, who feels discriminated against or feel excluded or whatever. We need to be able to say to them, it's okay for you to tell us that that's how you feel.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time people don't actually tell others how they feel. We're all very good at bottling it up and getting very hurt. And then it gets in the way, doesn't it, of work. and friendships
Oh,
and
yeah.
your everyday living.
Yeah, and on your health and well-being.
Precisely, yeah, because it builds up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It builds up, and then you say, oh God, I'm feeling paranoid now. Nobody likes me, or nobody wants to include me. So we need to be able to, as a society, not just as an organisation, but as a society, we need to be able to say, it's okay for you to say to me, that doesn't seem right.
For anybody who is interested in working with us on achieving better health equality for the LGBT community, or also better equality and diversity and inclusion around the trust, around our LGBT colleagues, then they would be more than welcome to join us in the Rainbow Alliance. You just drop us an email, rainbow.lypft@nhs.net, and we'll take it from there and let you know how you can get involved in the network. And our network is open for absolutely anybody, whether it's staff, volunteers, members of the public, members of the LGBT community, allies, service users, carers, anybody. Yeah, open to all, as long as we've all got the shared goal of wanting to achieve better inclusion for that community of people.
If anybody wishes to be part of our Workforce Race Equality Network, please do come along. It's open to everybody. You don't have to be a member to join. Like Kate said, everybody's welcome, whether you're a student, whether you're a doctor, whether you are director. We invite and welcome everybody. Our network email address is res-staffnetwork.lypft@nhs.net. Also, we have the Workforce Disability Network that's recently started, and it's a growing network. And again, if you wish to be involved in that, please contact diversity.lypft@nhs.net, and they will be able to give you information on how you can be part of that network too.
Fab. And so the final word is try and be inclusive.